Hello, everyone. Tonight we're diving deep into the very soul of the Middle Ages. Prepare to learn fascinating facts about the towering presence that shaped almost every single aspect of medieval existence, from the mightiest king to the humblest peasant, the church. Believe me, it was so much more than just a building where people went to pray. In the Middle Ages, the church was the very fabric of society itself, serving as a spiritual guide, a lawmaker, the ultimate record keeper, a vital source of healing, and even an incredibly powerful landowner. All of this happened without any of the digital networks or sprawling government bureaucracies we lean on so heavily today. Its influence was so utterly pervasive, so deeply woven into every thread of daily life, that it's frankly impossible to even imagine medieval existence without it. The rhythmic heartbeat of daily life, the parish church. Imagine waking up in a medieval village. You wouldn't be checking your phone for the news. No. Instead, you'd be roused by the deep, resounding peal of the church bell, its sound cutting through the pre-dawn chill. These bells weren't just a quaint tradition, they were the very heartbeat of time itself, the medieval clock for almost everyone. They marked the hours of prayer, matins before dawn, lauds as the sun kissed the horizon, prime when morning truly broke, terce mid-morning, sext at high noon, none mid-afternoon, vespers as evening approached, and compline when the day finally faded into night. These were the canonical hours, the structured schedule for monks and clergy, but their echoes permeated the entire community. They called people to worship, signaled the start and end of grueling workdays in the fields, and even served as a warning system, clanging furiously to signal an approaching army or a devastating fire. Without watches or grand town hall clocks, the rhythmic, comforting, and utterly authoritative chimes of the church bell were a constant presence, guiding every day from birth to death, from season to season. For most people, the local parish church was, quite literally, the undisputed center of their world. It was often the grandest and most enduring building in the village, even if it was just a humble stone or wooden structure. Here, life's most significant passages were marked by the sacraments. They were baptized as tiny infants, symbolically washing away original sin. They received communion, partaking in the body and blood of Christ, bringing them ever closer to salvation. They confessed their sins in hushed tones, seeking absolution from the priest. They were married, their union blessed and made legitimate by the church's decree. And eventually, they were laid to rest in the consecrated ground of the churchyard, their final resting place beneath the watchful eye of the cross. Sundays weren't merely for compulsory worship, though that was certainly central. They were also the primary social hub. After Mass, people would linger in the churchyard or on the church porch, eagerly sharing news and gossip, discussing the harvest and any trade, arranging marriages, resolving minor disputes, and even conducting informal business. The church porch, with its shelter, might even serve as a temporary market, a place for important public announcements, or a vital gathering point for weary travelers and pilgrims. Inside, the walls were often adorned with vibrant frescoes, picture books really, depicting Bible stories, tales of saints, and moral lessons for a largely illiterate population who learned their faith through vivid, compelling imagery. The priest, often the most educated person in the entire village, was far more than just a spiritual leader. He was a trusted advisor, a crucial record keeper, tracking births, marriages, and deaths for the entire community, and sometimes even the ultimate mediator in local disputes, wielding both undeniable moral authority and practical knowledge. Monumental faith, cathedrals, and abbeys, but the church's influence stretched far, far beyond the quiet parish. Powerful cathedrals rose like stone mountains in cities, their spires reaching impossibly high into the sky, their construction a true marvel of medieval engineering and profound faith. These architectural giants were built over centuries, literally by generations of masons, carpenters, and artisans. Their creation was a testament to immense collective effort, all achieved with only basic tools, ropes, pulleys, scaffolding, and truly incredible ingenuity. Can you imagine the sheer dedication required to quarry massive stones from distant hills, transport them for miles over treacherous roads, and then hoist these enormous blocks hundreds of feet into the air, relying only on human and animal power, combined with a deep, intuitive understanding of physics, leverage, and structural integrity? Cathedrals weren't just impressive buildings, they were centers of dioceses, the majestic seats of bishops, and often focal points for intense pilgrimage and advanced learning, drawing people from vast distances. Their stained glass windows, filled with dazzling light and kaleidoscopic colors, told sacred stories, bathing the interior in an ethereal, otherworldly glow, truly making them feel like heaven on earth. Monasteries and abbeys were equally vital, playing roles that extended far beyond pure spiritual devotion. Far from being isolated havens, they were veritable economic powerhouses, intellectual centers, and crucial providers of social services. Monks and nuns devoted their lives to prayer and spiritual work, following strict rules like the Rule of Saint Benedict. But their daily routines also involved extensive practical labor. They engaged in large-scale farming, brewing their own ale and beer, milling grain for themselves and local communities, and producing exquisite handicrafts like illuminated manuscripts, weaving fine textiles, and skilled metalwork. They were often pioneers in agricultural techniques, draining swamps to create fertile land, significantly improving crop yields, and introducing new livestock breeds. More importantly, they were the custodians of knowledge. In their scriptoria, monks painstakingly copied books by hand, preserving ancient Greek and Roman texts that would otherwise have been lost to time, and producing new theological, philosophical, and historical works. They were, in essence, the libraries and universities of their time, long before formal universities truly took hold. Without printing presses, which wouldn't arrive in Europe until the late Middle Ages, every single book was a unique, precious artifact, taking months or even years of painstaking labor to create. Scholars and thinkers often traveled enormous distances, enduring all the hardships of medieval travel just to study in monastic libraries, seeking out forbidden texts, rare copies of philosophical treatises, or simply engaging in stimulating discourse with learned monks. And let's not forget, monasteries also ran hospices, offering essential shelter, food, and compassionate care for the sick, the poor, and weary travelers, performing a vital role that our modern hospitals and welfare systems now fulfill. They frequently provided a rudimentary but often effective form of medical care based on herbal remedies and ancient medical texts. The Church's unrivaled power and guidance. The Church possessed its own sophisticated system of laws, canon law, its own formidable courts, and a system of governance that often rivaled or even surpassed that of secular kings and emperors. It could collect its own taxes, like tithes, literally a tenth of one's produce or earnings, held vast tracts of land, and commanded immense wealth in gold, silver, and precious artifacts. The Pope, as the spiritual leader of all Christendom, held immense moral and political authority, able to even excommunicate kings. Being excommunicated meant being cast out of the Church and, to medieval minds, denied salvation itself. Such an act could lead to widespread political instability, rebellion among their subjects who feared divine wrath, and severe economic repercussions, as virtually no one would dare trade with an excommunicated ruler. Can you imagine a king trembling at the mere thought of the Pope's wrath, knowing it could undermine his entire reign and perhaps even lead to his utter downfall? Education, for centuries, was almost entirely the domain of the Church. Monasteries and cathedrals ran schools that primarily trained future clergy, ensuring a continuous stream of educated men for the priesthood. But they also educated a select few lay people, usually the sons of nobles or wealthy merchants, who were destined for crucial administrative roles in royal courts or the burgeoning cities. Latin, the sacred language of the Church, was also the universal lingua franca of scholars, diplomats, and educated individuals across all of Europe, allowing effortless communication and the free sharing of ideas in a way that completely defied local dialects and national boundaries. Without formal public education systems, the Church provided the crucial framework for literacy, intellectual development, and the transmission of knowledge throughout the entire medieval period. Universities, when they began to emerge in the 12th and 13th centuries, like Bologna, Paris, and Oxford, were initially founded by the Church and remained under its strong, guiding influence for centuries. The Church also offered profound spiritual comfort and essential moral guidance in a world that was often incredibly harsh, unpredictable, and filled with suffering, with painfully high mortality rates from rampant disease and devastating famine, frequent and brutal wars, and constant personal peril. People found immense solace and an enduring hope in their faith. The sacraments, baptism, communion, confession, marriage, and last rites marked every significant stage of life, providing deep meaning, a sense of divine order, and a clear, direct path to salvation. Pilgrimages to holy sites, like the sacred city of Jerusalem, the eternal city of Rome, or the distant Santiago de Compostela, often arduous journeys undertaken entirely on foot and lasting months or even years, were undertaken out of deep devotion, seeking miracles, forgiveness for sins, or simply a closer, more tangible connection to God and the saints. These epic journeys, performed without any modern transport and enduring immense hardship, required immense fortitude and unwavering faith. The pervasive belief in heaven, hell, and purgatory profoundly shaped daily morality, with people constantly striving to live a life that would ensure their eternal salvation. The Church's shadows and enduring legacy. However, let's be honest, the Church, being a human institution, was not without its shadows. Its immense power and vast wealth sometimes led to rampant corruption. The notorious selling of indulgences, pardons for sins, the practice of simony, the buying and selling of church offices, and the accumulation of vast estates and personal wealth by powerful abbots and bishops were constant sources of deep tension and eventually fueled significant reform movements, foreshadowing the Great Reformation that would come centuries later. The Church's strict doctrines could also, unfortunately, stifle scientific inquiry and intellectual dissent, with figures like Galileo, though he came later than the main medieval period. His story reflects this ongoing tension, facing severe consequences for daring to challenge established theological or philosophical views that were deeply intertwined with scientific understanding. The brutal persecution of heretics, sometimes with horrifying, merciless force, also marked a truly darker, more authoritarian side of its immense power. Yet, despite its flaws and the profound challenges it faced, the Church remained the undisputed bedrock of medieval society. It provided essential social cohesion, a universal moral code that transcended political boundaries, vital social services through its hospices and charity, and the primary framework for art, learning, and cultural expression. It was the enduring institution that truly knit together fragmented kingdoms and incredibly diverse peoples, offering stability, deep meaning, and a profound sense of shared identity and purpose in a world utterly unlike our own. It profoundly shaped how medieval people understood their lives, their deaths, and their ultimate place in the universe, leaving an indelible, magnificent, and often haunting mark on Western civilization. So, as you drift off, perhaps you can hear the distant, ethereal echoes of a Gregorian chant drifting from a quiet monastery. See the flickering candlelight illuminate ancient manuscripts copied by patient, unseen hands, or imagine the grand, awe-inspiring silhouette of a magnificent cathedral rising against the dawn, a silent, powerful testament to faith, community, and ingenuity in a world without modern technology, yet rich with its own unique wonders and enduring spirit. Good night.